We have a very special session, and as all our sessions, but this one is quite special and quite dear to our hearts because we're very excited to see that the multilateral processes, particularly in the context of G20, are moving forward. I am sure that many of you are aware that there has been, and we will hear a bit more about that, good results on behalf of, through the leadership of the Brazilian government, on the development of a first multilateral text that addresses principles, high-level principles on bioeconomy. We are very proud and we are very eager to see what does that means for the One Planet Network. So we will start this session with a number of statements that will provide us this context and this backdrop from different perspectives, including from the government of Brazil, the European Commission, particularly the Director General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission, Ms. Joanna Drake, who has prepared a message, and we're very grateful for their support, their leadership, and actually co-hosting this important session. And then we will have a keynote presentation from Luisa Santiago, who is the leader for Latin America for Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who has been with us throughout this forum, and we are grateful for Ellen MacArthur's Foundation support. And we'll conclude this first part of our session with a short intervention as well, a presentation by Dr. Maria Augusta Arruda, who's the director of the Brazilian Bioscience National Laboratory. So we really have brought a number of perspectives. Once we conclude this first section of our plenary, we will have an exciting panel discussion, but I won't get already into introducing that session. So it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce our dear friend, a member of the board of the NYFB, Mr. Vicente Acevedo Araujo Filho, who's General Director for Sustainable Development at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and team leader on the G20 initiative on bioeconomy. Vicente.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Dear friends, new friends, and very old friends. I just met a friend that I haven't met for 23 years here. It's great to see so many people working on the right direction towards sustainability. I'm going to skip all the names. I have 20 names to say here, but good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure for me to be here. Sustainable consumption production patterns is it's a personal passion, more than part of my profession. I remember very vividly when we were starting the preparations for Rio Plus 20, this woman from this NGO called Bioregional, which does this incredible job on SAP, came to talk to me and to present me with the concept of SAP. And I was really impressed, and I fell in love for the concept and for the woman. So in the end, a few years later, we were able to create the NYFB through Rio Plus 20. We managed to get an SDG on SAP, SDG 12, and I married her and we had 2 children. So we're still very happy today. And last year, I was presented with this task, this challenge of leading the G20, creating and leading the G20 initiative on bioeconomy. And very soon, the bioeconomy also became a passion. The bioeconomy holds such a potential to drive SCP and to drive sustainable development and to fight climate change, that the more we study and the more we discuss, the more we advance multilaterally, the more I realize that this is one of the right things that we need. And let me congratulate you, Jorge, and all your team for bringing new discussions to the SCP realm, for bringing especially the bioeconomy and the inequality discussions to bioeconomy. They are both subjects that are structural, just like the SCP is. As we know, SCP is not only about the environment, it's about all the dimensions of sustainable development. And the bioeconomy and inequalities, they have this structural factor as well that I believe is what we need right now. We have the SDGs, we have the Paris Agreement, but we know that we need more. We need to find new fronts and new ways to promote sustainable development and to fight climate change. And I think that working on structural paradigms is one of the ways forward. And I think this is what we have in common, that SCP, bioeconomy, and fighting inequality have in common. And this is part of the objective that we had of our initiative on G20 on bioeconomy, is to bring this paradigm and to try and move the international community forward and to foster this in all the G20 countries and hopefully in the rest of the countries in the world. The bioeconomy is already a reality, and the way it helps SCP is, well, 1 minute, okay, I'm gonna try to wrap up. We have already concrete examples on how the bioeconomy is helping drive SCP forward. For instance, the biofuels is one huge example here in Brazil, where by having the bioeconomy producing energy, we are decreasing our carbon footprint, and we're creating jobs in the interior of the country. We have an amazing experience of replacing fossil fuel-based fertilizers in Brazil with bio-based inputs for our agriculture, and then we have a few million tons of carbon not emitted every year because of this. Is bioeconomy. The biorefineries and the bioplastic in Brasilia, where we live, the plastic bags into supermarkets, they are made of bioplastic and they're biodegradable. So this is bioeconomy again, fostering SCP. But I think SCP also drives the bioeconomy. When you talk about sustainable lifestyles, and then we foster demand for bioproducts and for locally produced and fair trade products, we are also helping local communities. We're helping small businesses. So we're, helping bioeconomy. And in this process, we're also helping reduce inequalities. So we have a virtual cycle where SCP, the bioeconomy, and inequalities, they bring the solutions to each other, and they help our economic systems to move in a more sustainable direction. So I'm really fascinated with this panel. I hope that I'm sure the presentations will be incredible, and I will stop here and let the real experts speak. But thank you so much. This is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Excellencies, honorable delegates, distinguished guests. We live in a world with limited resources. Climate change and ecosystem degradation are existential threats to Europe and the world. Coupled with a growing population, it forces us to seek new ways of producing and consuming which respect the ecological boundaries of our planet. The bioeconomy is an example of how to reconcile people, planet, and prosperity, providing cleaner air and new sustainable products, contributing to food and energy security too. Building on renewable resources, it has the potential to help us face our global challenges. But biomass is, although renewable, a finite resource. We should use sustainably, for instance, circularly, and providing the highest possible benefit. This year, the re-elected President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, set out the political priorities for the next 5 years, including a clean industrial deal, a more circular and resilient economy, putting research and innovation at the heart of our economy, food security, water and nature, climate adaptation, preparedness and solidarity. I'm really glad that the 10-year framework of program's global strategy recognizes that a circular and sustainable bioeconomy can respond to our vision of future economies. It is time to look ahead and move from linear to circular economies, making full use of the biological potential of our planet's resources. It is time to move forward for the achievement of the 2030 Agenda, the objectives of the Paris Agreement, and the goals of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Earlier this week, the Brazil's G20 Presidency Initiative on Bioeconomy produced 10 high-level principles to spearhead a global bioeconomy. The European Union is thankful to Brazil to show leadership on the bioeconomy and for developing its principles at the global level. The focus, the potential, and the challenges to deploy bioeconomies vary by region and country. The high-level principles are important and show that together we can achieve nature and people positive impacts. We are looking forward to the next G20 presidencies to continue this work. In the European Union, we have a bioeconomy strategy since 2012 and updated in 2018. We see bioeconomy as a broad concept enabling the transition to an economy that is competitive, regenerative, and fair. This strategy is helping us to deploy a sustainable and circular bioeconomy that works in tandem with nature. And we are already working on an update of the EU bioeconomy strategy for the end of 2025. It will respond to the great challenges ahead and take into consideration these 10 principles discussed here in Rio. In the European Union, the bioeconomy strategy is rooted in research and innovation. We understood that through advances in science, technology, and innovations, we can fully unlock the bioeconomy potential. Bioeconomy is a central element in the European Union's key funding program for R&I, Horizon Europe. The program offers opportunities to researchers and innovators from all over the world in many areas related to the sustainable and circular bioeconomy. We believe that international cooperation in research and innovation is paramount for accelerating to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The circular economy and bioeconomy are both key concepts to increase the sustainability of consumption and production. Furthermore, a sustainable and circular bioeconomy can accelerate innovation, resource efficiency, social equality, and market competitiveness for sustainable use of natural resources and for ecosystems services restoration. I wish you all a very fruitful forum.
We are indeed extremely grateful for these two messages that set the leadership, that set the tone, and that also I think perhaps some of you are not aware of the principles yet of high-level principles of the G20 on bioeconomy. I am assured that they are already public, and we will post them online in the website of our forum. And very important amongst these principles is Principle 5. And I'm very grateful, as I already mentioned, to have our dear friend, colleague, and partner, Luisa Santiago, who is going to speak to you why Principle 5, that's at the heart of these 10 high-level principles, so kind of bringing everything together matters, and what experience we have learned. Luisa, the floor is yours.
Bom dia, buenos dias, good morning, everyone. Great to be here. This is my hometown. I lived here till 33 years old, and then I moved to the south of Brazil, but it's really great to be back Just 2 days ago, no, 3 days ago, on Tuesday, while the high-level principles were being discussed in the room next door, I was presenting the same presentation. And by then, I thanked for the space to be there, but now I thank you, Vicente, and Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, and Danielle, I'm sure I saw you here as well, for not just having given me, and oh, yeah, of course, Rafaela, Bruno, not just having given me the space to speak there, but also to have approved such relevant documents, such relevant principles, and for including the principle of a circular economy in that same principle. So really, thank you. And I actually think we need to applaud the Itamaraty policy and the Brazilian presidency of the G20 for achieving that, really. So do I have, oh yeah, I do have that. And if I may, I will steal that glass of water because the smokes are too strong. Okay. So just to start, I want to put everyone on the same page, right? Today's economy is linear, right? We generate economic value in the economy by extracting, taking materials off the ground, transforming them, making them into products and goods, and and just wasting them in various forms, in the form of solid waste, in the form of pollution, in the form of emissions. And we do know this model since the Industrial Revolution, and it feels like it is just a normal way of doing things. It feels like that's the only approach to take to generate economic value. But it was actually designed to be linear, and we need to acknowledge that. And therefore, we need to understand also that this linear economy is the root cause of the big planetary crisis that we face. Take climate change, for example. Although all the discussions have predominantly focused on the energy transition. In fact, even if we are very successful in the energy transition, we are only going to be tackling just over half of the emissions reduction that we need to meet the 1.5 degrees of the Paris Agreement. The other half of it, 45%, is actually derives from the way we produce and consume goods and food in a linear economy. This is also the root cause of biodiversity loss. 90%, in fact, of all the biodiversity, or the pressures on biodiversity, derive from the extractful, impactful, and wasteful and polluting way that our linear economy works. And it's also the root cause of pollution, the third planetary crisis that we mentioned, for obvious reasons, right? But pollution is a symptom of a linear economy, but let's not forget, it's also a big driver for biodiversity loss. So reversing this trend requires a fundamental shift, a shift that moves us away from a linear economy to a circular economy. And the circular economy, actually, it's not just good for the environment, it also offers greater opportunities for businesses, for society, and for the environment. And it's actually based on 3 principles. We call them the 3 principles of a circular economy. They're actually fundamentally, philosophical principles, lenses through which we look at value generation in a circular economy. And they are all driven by design. What does that mean? Driven by the choices made when we create products, materials, systems, services. First principle is to eliminate waste and pollution. And then the second one is to circulate products and materials in the economy at their highest level, and regenerating nature, which is and has always been in the center of the principles of a circular economy. And we need that system change, we need that fundamental shift, because that's a framework that will address the root cause of the crisis of today. And while often the circular economy is related to sustainable consumption and production, SDG 12, our studies show that, often lots of others can be tackled and addressed by a circular economy transition, such as employment, zero hunger, etc., many others, climate change, etc. So it's really a systemic solution for a lot of the issues that we have today. And the circular economy is actually a whole of economy approach. It's not just the technical cycle or just the biological cycle. It's actually to look at all the sectors in the economy. This is what we kindly call a butterfly diagram. I think it's for obvious reasons. It does look like a butterfly. And it's a 2-dimensional model for us to work to see how materials flow in a circular economy. It's not a whole economic approach. It's actually materials flow. So it's quite useful to see where we should be looking at and where value generation strategies can be. On the blue side, on my left-hand side, your right-hand side, it's the technical cycle, where finite materials need to be designed to eliminate waste and pollution and to be circulated in the economy at their highest level, thus allowing space for nature to regenerate. The green side is the biological cycle. That's where the bioeconomy sits. That's where we transform, sectors transform animals, plants, microorganisms, algae into energy, goods, materials, information. And that's how we finally see we're drawing those two concepts together, circular economy and bioeconomy. And I think the bioeconomy, the biological cycle in the circular economy language, is where the beauty lies in terms of tackling and fighting the planetary crisis that we face. Because although in the technical cycle we can reduce the impacts of a linear economy by reducing waste and pollution, by reducing the extraction of new virgin materials, it's actually in the biological cycle, in the bioeconomy sectors, where you can actually design businesses, products, materials, so that they sequester carbon, they regenerate nature in an economic value, in generating economic value. So that's quite a powerful way of looking at how we need to make sure sustainable consumption and production really achieves the sustainable development that we want. But how does that happen? Circular innovation can happen in both upstream and downstream. And I know lots of industries use that those terminologies, and they have different meanings. So for circular economy language, let's say, vocabulary, we say upstream in everything that is close to the design stages. You know, the design decisions that are taken when you're thinking of a material, of a product, designing a business model, designing a service. And the downstream is everything that happens once a product and material is in the market. It's after use. And both of them are needed for a circular economy transition. Yet there's not so much you can do in the downstream innovation when you have designed in the upstream with a linear mindset. And that's why I want to bring the attention to the design stage, right? So driven by design, bioeconomy sectors can choose to apply circular economy principles and thus have better outcomes for nature. And this is very important because also it's where you take this, design decisions to also create better equity and better value for the communities in the value chains. And this requires a mindset shift, right? I've already said that. And because our current economy is largely linear. And it also requires enabling conditions such as policy and financial mechanisms. But for today, because we do have other policy experts, I'm going to focus on the role of businesses for that. And there is an enormous role for businesses in designing product portfolios and driving substantial shifts in the way we use biological resources. Those bioeconomies, the sectors in the bioeconomy, they really need to apply circular economy thinking into the design of product portfolios to then generate benefits throughout the value chains and back to the landscapes where materials come from. Take food as an example. Perhaps the most impactful and important sector in the bioeconomy when it comes to natural systems. So today, just 4 crops are responsible for 60% of the calories that humans consume across the world. That's a monotony, many people say. And many times the ingredients that go into food products, they are produced with methods that are degrading for soil, polluting, and really depleting natural resources. And this also, of course, has implications on the landscapes that we depend on the ecosystems we depend on, and the diversity and density of our diets. This is not just the normal way of doing things, okay? I'm going to just reinforce that. This is not just the normal way of doing things. This was designed to be that way. And these are design choices that the food industry have embedded so deeply in the way they produce food that makes then the food system the most impactful and responsible for 1/3 of all greenhouse gases emissions and half of all the human-induced pressures on biodiversity. But the beauty of the bioeconomy, again, is that working with nature and its intelligence can actually unlock a lot of the benefits for the landscapes and for the ecosystems. In 2021, we launched the Big Food Redesign Report, where we introduced the concept of circular design for food. And we modeled the impact of applying that in the industry for several crops. And we actually understood that there is a 70% reduction on GHG emissions that can be achieved, and half of all the pressures on biodiversity can be addressed just by applying that concept, all the while you improve yields in the field. So rather than bending nature to produce food, which is what we do nowadays with the landscapes that are very monotonous and you know, poor soils, lack of biodiversity, we can go to the other side of this spectrum, this image, which for me is quite interesting, because then the production landscapes are actually much more similar to nature. Soils are richer, roots are longer, biodiversity's interconnections are much stronger. And circular design for food is a combination of food design and circular economy principles. And I know it seems a little bit strange for us to talk about design of food the same way as we talk about design of clothes and automotives and, you know, furniture. But actually, there are many design decisions that are taken when you're thinking of a food product that define the texture, the aroma, the flavor. And all those decisions, they radiate throughout the system, and they go back to the landscapes. And although some businesses are already, you know, using and understanding the value of circular design for food into not just creating delicious products, but also I think there is an enormous underexplored potential and opportunity for more businesses to apply. And it's not just about food, right? So, you know, I know that I have just 1 minute, so I'm just going to go through this very easily, very quickly. We did create a space for businesses to really test and put this into concept and reality, which is the Big Food Redesign Challenge, where we brought industries to really produce food products with the circular design for food concept. This is just some metric of the products that are being created right now, where it shows that the average industry is the yellow curve, has negative impact on nature. The green curve is the average product in the Big Food Redesign Challenge, and they do have regenerative impact on nature, just proving the hypothesis that we had. And stay tuned, because those products will be in the market by next year, May next year. All those products will be in the market, in the supermarket shelves, where you can be consuming them across the world. But this is not just about food, right? We're talking about bioeconomy. There are other sectors involved. So because of the inspiration we had with the food systems, and because of having proven the effectiveness of circular design for food, we are now expanding that into looking at other sectors. And we decided to look at the Amazon as the landscape from which those biological resources and materials will come from. And we are creating, right now, we just kicked off a project where we're going to invite other industries, food as well as beauty and hygiene and health, to be applying circular design thinking into the development of product portfolios so that it supports a standing and regenerated Amazon. So it does go beyond the application on food. It does go beyond the application of arable lands. It can create impact in the Amazon, and we need to bring businesses around that. We are already doing that. So just to close, I wanted everyone to imagine a world where all industries in the bioeconomy, in the sectors of the bioeconomy, are vehicles for creating landscapes, a much needed transformation in the landscapes and the way we use and create value from nature. That could happen in several sectors, such as biofuels, as Vicente said here, such as fibers and other biomaterials in general. And the impact on landscapes could be of arable lands, as we have here, you know, regenerative sugarcane plantation, or forests or other ecosystems. And to close my contribution, I really want to encourage industries and the accelerated uptake of circular design into the bioeconomy sector, so industries can really become a vehicle for all the nature positive outcomes that we need in that circular economy transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luisa, for providing the backdrop, for showing what are the linkages between a circular economy, sustainable consumption and production, transformation of our food systems, and a number of topics that are dear to the programs of the One Planet Network. Our next perspective will be provided by Dr. Maria Augusta Arruda, and we're very proud and very honored to have you here with us today. Maria, you are director of the Brazilian Bioscience National Laboratory. Yesterday we were discussing about the importance of science, the importance of guiding policies on science, on data, on evidence, and what a better way than presenting this perspective from the South. I want to invite you to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, new friends, old friends, I'm really honored to be here, and I thank you, Jorge, for coordinating this incredible network. But I will thank Vicente, and in his name, and Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, thanking the wonderful team that has been taking me in a journey since the first in-person meeting in the bioeconomy initiative. So I'm a geek, so here's the disclaimer. And I'll try to share with you in this amazing science diplomacy effort that you are doing, to show the side of the scientists. Something that I said a week ago here in this room is that we think that science is the promoter of all good things. But if we think about the challenges that we've got today, they are all a combination of scientific advancements and responsible scientific advancements with irresponsible political will. So I think it's the role of the scientists to think about a fairer, juster, and more prosperous world from the beginning, even the basic scientists where you stay. So I want to entice you, to lure you to visit us at the city of Campinas. That's CNPM. I think the location is quite emblematic and connects with Luisa so beautifully put. So it's a campus, it's the most advanced infrastructure of science technology in Brazil and to some extent in Latin America. It's the home of what was the first synchrotron light source in the Southern Hemisphere, and is now the home of 4 national laboratories. We are 1,500 people working in different areas. So there is the National Synchrotron Light Source Laboratory, the Biorenewables one, the Nanotechnology one that has the largest electron microscopy park in Latin America, and the Brazilian Bioscience National Laboratory that I direct. Our activities, all our facilities are open and free of charge to anyone around the world to use, anyone from any country to use, free of charge. We've got deep commitment to research and development, support for innovation, and education, training, and outreach from areas spanning from agriculture to health to the environment. We could do that, and we can do this very audacious research because we don't think that we should be shackled to the way the world has been designed. So just as an example, I told you that we've got one of the most advanced synchrotron light sources in the world, the other ones being in Europe. So to do that with almost 90% of the technology developed in Brazil shows the mission of CNPM in doing things differently. And the icing on the cake, because we are totally mad, we are also building the first biosafety level 4 laboratory in Latin America, which is a matter not only of science, but of sovereignty. And it's also going to be the first high and maximum containment laboratory in the world connected to synchrotron light sources. So it is, that's true, it is happening. Here you see, the land being, for the foundations, and he is our president 2 months ago, officially launching the project. That will allow us to see matter, viruses, and infections in a way that was not possible before. And that's because of the tradition of the center. So he's the Brazilian Biosciences National Laboratory. That's my part, small and mighty in this wonderful campus. And our working mission is to use integrative biology to understand health and disease in the Anthropocene, while supporting the development of healthcare solutions. 5 minutes, okay. So these are the cool things we do. I'm not going to spend too much time, but we resolved the first structure of a virus in Latin America, an endemic virus. We've got a lot of work redefining the way you understand life. So we could show another dimension of the way proteins are structured. We've got facilities devoted to immunobiologics, all the way to tissue engineering, gene editing, and proteomics. And I'm going to talk a little bit more of you as drug discovery, as a proof of concept of the power of our biodiversity. Because with all these very fancy things, we need to bear in mind that the big challenges of our times is a climate crisis, as we all know, and the huge and obscene levels of inequalities. So when I was training, when I would dream that there'll be a paper on science advances talking about the ecological and evolutionary consequences of systemic racism and the effect that it's got on our bodies and our lives. Many people talk about One Health. I think that it's really cool, but One Health is understanding that this health is in the core of the equilibrium between the climate drivers, how functional our ecosystems are, the ecosystemic services are, and how resilient or vulnerable our communities are, from the microbiota on the soil all the way to humanity as a whole. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but climate emergency is killing people. So there was an increase of 80%, over 80% in the death of people over 65 years old because of the heat. And we are devoting some time to understand that with our very unique integrative biology approaches. So I think that what we are talking about is a paradigm shift. The necessity of holistic approaches, equitable relationships, and the use of responsible research and innovation to address the intersectional failures of our past through co-design, co-production, co-delivery. So, as I said, we are geeks, and what we do is research, and we committed to the research of the highest quality. So we start where we are, use what we have, and do what we can, as Arthur Ashe said. So here is what I want to bring you, my offer to these discussions on bioeconomy, the Brazilian Natural Product Bank that we are building, and that's the work of love of Daniela Trivella, that is my head of drug discovery, and her team. So it's an initiative that aims to compile and prospect molecules from the biodiversity. We do that, well, we are in a very good place to do that, in a mega biodiverse country with 6 thriving biomes despite the aggression it receives. Spoiler here, all the medications that we've got today 65% of them are originated from the biodiversity. They are either natural products or inspired by natural products. So it's a very good way of aggregating value to the products of the biodiversity, but we need to do that responsibly. So we've got the facilities and the infrastructure to do this collection and identification sustainably and responsibly using, sorry, it's not going because it, yeah. Oh. How do I come back? Anyway, it doesn't, yes, so developing, using AI, we found out 35 totally novel compounds from our biodiversity. We use our capabilities to not only identify these molecules, but to understand how they act in the organism. So this is here, the animation is showing a protein, a molecular target, and the natural product there, right in the core. So all those things that I learned as a molecular pharmacologist, that natural product research is sorcery, that is not specific, it is not fit for purpose. We are debunking it every day. And with connection with a number of industrial partners with the support of the Brazilian government. We do that with plants, that's what I showed before, but also with microbiota. And with microbiota, we have the opportunity not only of identifying these molecules, but also to understand the biosynthetic routes, making the production of these compounds even more sustainable. So here's a case study for you to show the commitment. That is the case of licuri. Licuri is called the gold of the Brazilian desert, from the Brazilian Caatinga. If you like Occitan products, they use licuri oil quite a lot, and it is collected, harvested by these very brave women in the very semi-arid of Brazil that collect and process the oil of this nut that is the licuri. And we started a program with the support of the Brazilian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, where we interacted them not as providers of the licuri, but as co-designers of the study. So on the far right, that's their visit to Senipem a couple of years ago. And obviously, aggregating value to their product, it's not only obviously, there is the role in the SDG 12 through the 2 patents we filed with them. It was the first time in Brazil that a university, our friends at the Federal University of Pernambuco, co-authored a patent with this local community. But also, as Luisa so well said, there is a connection with many other SDGs. It's not a very long story. It started in July 2020, but with purpose, we can see how we can create change and suggest a framework for responsible and sustainable consumption and production. This example was obtaken by the Inter-American Development Bank, and we are very happy to support colleagues in Bolivia, Colombia, and Ecuador in bioprospecting the Latin America, the biodiversity. So it's a partnership with Amazonian countries. What the future holds, and here is a thank to Vicente and Daniel. I remember when you first contacted me, you were a bit, I don't know if you're going to like the idea of bringing the traditional knowledge to this space, and we loved it, and it changed our lives. So now we've got, that's an event of the World Health Organization on biodiversity, traditional knowledge, health, and well-being. And it's important to see that we can explore the synergies and complementarities of these approaches to redesign thriving health-related bioeconomies. And I'm really finishing now, I'm very happy to share with you in first hand the collaboration with the Mamirawa Institute in the Amazon, our colleagues at the PAHO, at the Pan American Health Organization, through BIREMI, where we are engaging with the local communities, suggesting legal frameworks for ethical collaboration, using a digital approach to preserve traditional knowledge and integrate that with our approaches to the identification of biomolecules, providing also a molecular biodiversity map that will for sure be very important in the future. So I thank you for your patience. Thank you for the opportunity. We are here to help. We would love to host you all in Campinas in the near future. And it's important to say that we don't want to do to greenwash extractivist practices, but we want to use high-end technology, cutting-edge science to unlock the power of our biodiversity. So thank you very much for your patience, and I look forward to discuss with you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Augusta Arruda, for your presentation. And now I have the privilege, we're running a bit behind time, but I think you have already understood that what we're discussing here, it's innovative in terms of policy, it's innovative in terms of science, it's innovative in terms of partnerships, and it helps us scale up our work. My next introduction will be very brief. It's to invite my colleague, Mr. Juan Bello, who is the Regional Director and Representative of UNEP's Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, and a great partner. And thank you so much for your support, Juan, for the success of this forum as well. He will be moderating a panel discussion on this topic, and I hand the floor now to him. Juan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. It is a great pleasure and an honor to be here supporting this discussion. You know that we have set very ambitious goals globally. First of all, the goal of living in harmony with nature, also in a stable climate with healthy lands, healthy soils, and free of pollution. Bioeconomy is at the center of all those goals. So we will have today a very interesting discussion about the opportunities, the challenges to put bioeconomy at the center of those transformations and at the center of the transition towards sustainable consumption and production. For that discussion, I'm truly privileged to have a fantastic lineup today, a very excellent panelist. So let me invite you all, starting with Mr. Joao Campari, who is the global leader for food and agriculture practice at the World Wildlife Fund, WWF. Joao, welcome. Please. And now let me invite Mrs. Andrea Mesa Murillo, who is the Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification. Now let me call to Mrs. Marina Negrisoli, who is the Director of Sustainability at Suzano. Welcome, Marina.
Thank you.
And now I'm privileged to invite Mrs. Fernanda Resende Facchini, Head of Climate Change and Circularity at Natura. Fernanda, what a pleasure. Please. And last but not least, I'm also very privileged to invite Dr. Veronika Tomei, who works at the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protections, BMUV, where she is the head of the Working Group 4 in the Directorate of International Policy and Commissioner for the 2030 Agenda. Yes, I think it is working. So without further ado for this, to start this conversation, I would like to start with Joao Campari. And Joao, you've been involved in several of the global initiatives around sustainable food systems. So how can you describe the potential for bioeconomy to address food sovereignty and also that idea of having sustainable food systems in the planet?
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here. Good morning, everybody. Look, when I chaired the UN Food Systems Summit Action Track 3, which was around scaling up nature-positive production, I thought that there was a wonderful opportunity. The summit, the Food Summit, put food systems front and center of the international dialogues around transformation. And the summit was really, really interesting because it connected three parts that are near and dear to my heart, which we need to resolve, which is we have, as Luisa pointed out, we have a climate crisis going on, we have a biodiversity crisis going on, and we have a food and nutrition crisis going on. We cannot resolve any of these three crises without tapping into the other two. Because guess what? The blanket is too short. We need to come up with systemic solutions. And I think the Food Systems Summit brought this huge elephant into the room. And the role of the chairs were to bring multi-stakeholders to discuss what needed to happen to fix these three crises at once. We had to identify synergies. We had to name the trade-offs that would happen, because sometimes trade-offs are cannot be resolved, and we need all the social safety nets to help resolve them. And some of the coalitions were quite inspiring. There is a coalition for soil health. There is a coalition that emerged from the summit on agroecology, following the 13 principles of agroecology. There are plenty of examples throughout the world, and we heard many during this event here. You know, yesterday I moderated a panel on, you know, how do we break the barriers of food system transformation, and country after country stood up here and gave examples, right? But here's the thing, if we want to transform food systems, and if we want to implement a bioeconomy model that will help address the challenges of the food system on production, consumption, diets, and food loss and waste, we need incentives. And two incentives that I think, or two systems that we need to fix, are generally not discussed as much as we should. One is the role of subsidies, right? If we are going to be serious about a discussion on bioeconomy, we need to be aware that there are $500 billion every year spent on agri-food subsidies that are harmful to nature, that are harmful to climate, and they're harmful to people. Unless we discuss how subsidies are going to be reformed, and by subsidies I mean there are good subsidies and bad subsidies. The good ones are the ones that spill over positive externalities, and the bad ones are the ones that spills over costs to society, or negative externalities. I'm talking about the bad ones, right? The harmful subsidies. So we need to bring this. We know how much countries spend on subsidies. We know the damage that is making. So countries need to start to put targets to shift harmful subsidies into the ones that create positive externalities. So this is one thing, and we are not discussing this nearly as much as we should. And the second one is international trade. When you look from the health and human health and safety perspectives, we have a code. It's called Codex alimentarius that created a norm for all foods that enter into the global trading system to respect levels of, you know, how they are produced and so on, so that it's ensured that when they reach ports, when they reach the importing markets, that food is safe and healthy for their populations. But we are living through tipping points in the planet. It's great that people are protected from anything that is harmful from them from the health and safety perspective. But the planet is not healthy. It's time that we create something. At WWF, we are working on it. It's called Codex Planetarius. That it's an idea that we need to come up with key principles of production for all foods that enter the global market. With the Codex Alimentarius taking care of people's health and safety, and the Codex Planetarius, which is every food that enters into the global trading system performs or meets certain performance standards are needed. Without these two elements, taking care and tackling subsidies and international trade, I am afraid that bioeconomies do not have a hope. Because today bioeconomies are in the hands of niche, and we have plenty of beautiful examples from NGOs, government supporting it, but they are niche. They don't resolve the triple crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and food and nutrition insecurity. We need these two elements brought into the room as soon as possible. We have 6 harvests that separates us from where we are to 2030. So we better get our acts together, roll up the sleeves and do some work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joao. This is, I think the Codex Planetarius that you mentioned is the way to accelerate the transformation to sustainable food systems with the consideration that we need to live within planetary boundaries. And we need to transform everything from that perspective. So that is very sobering. And one of the elements is that we all know that we are losing our healthy lands, our fertile soils. Land degradation is becoming one of the major problems for livelihoods, for sustainability. There are many issues, including migration, social challenges that depend on that. And this is one of the core aspects that is covered precisely by the convention to which you are at the helm, Andrea. So I would like to get your views precisely on how bioeconomy could halt or support halting land degradation and promote land restoration, regeneration, and also address other objectives.
Thank you, Juan. Good morning, and I'm really grateful and so inspired after hearing Luisa, Maria Augusta, and I would just say, and of course Joao, but I will just say by implementing what they presented here. This is really the way to stop, and I will not say the triple crisis, because we have a multiple crisis. It's really what we're facing. It's about, yes, climate, nature, pollution, but also nutrition, food, it's insecurity, and it's also, in many of the cases, this is catalyzed by the way we're dealing with our land, our soil, and this is what the convention UNCCD is about. We're calling ourselves the voice of healthy land and drought resilience. So also two very critical challenges. And in this regard, it's clear that we need to scale up a lot of these small areas. And the first element to achieve that is really understanding the economic value of nature, of healthy land, of this soil that we have. And this is where we see, and when we were hearing all about bioeconomy, and I really would like, again, to acknowledge the importance of the adoption of these 10 principles within the G20, which is not an easy forum. So again, this was huge, because it's political signals that this is going in the right direction, that we need to give value and policy coherence and understanding that we need to transform our economies at the end. It's about that. If we want to achieve our climate, nature, land goals, it's about transforming our economies. It's about giving value and the right signals to the things that are aligned in the way to achieve all these goals. And the beauty of this is that we heard it. Yes, everything was designed to be in this linear economy, but it can be different. And we are seeing this in many places of the world. And it's how to scale up. And here is where all these forums, multilateral agreements play a role, because we need to adopt these decisions that at the same time will catalyze processes at the national level. We need this policy coherence. We need the right policy frameworks with the right incentives, and again, transforming these harmful subsidies in the right incentives, because this transformation requires as well the mobilization of resources. So it's a challenge, yes, but it's a great opportunity, and we have the knowledge, and what we need is all this political will, and this is why the principles are so important to be achieved in this kind of forums. And then it's also about engaging, of course, the private sector in all this, and the different stakeholders. We've been hearing, this is whole of economy approach, this is whole of society approach. And the way to engage the private sector, it's about using these innovations, giving the right economic benefits to it, and scaling up. And probably the big conversation here is how can we all together in our different roles can align these policies, these incentives, so we can scale up in the pace that nature and our planet requires it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And you are touching on points that are precisely critical for continuing this conversation, and is that in the end, we need to make sure that all these changes that are needed, that start from policy frameworks, from incentives, need to translate into opportunities for the private sector, for employment, for jobs, for consumers, for everyone. And in that context, I would like now to invite Marina to ask you, Marina, you come from the private sector. And in the context of Susano, I would like to know how you see bioeconomy being precisely an inspiration for the way you develop as a business, as a critical part of these transformations.
Sure, thank you. First of all, it's an honor to be here and very happy with all this connection among our agenda, and mainly the approval of these 10 principles, because it's a major step towards what all of us here probably believe we should go. At Suzano, we are a major player on the bioeconomy globally. We have eucalyptus plantations that are grown intertwined with nature. It's very nice to see the chart Luisa presented, because this is the core of our strategy, and how do we manage the area where we produce these bioproducts. Because we have been planting, we have been dealing with the very same area for over 60 years now, and we see that every time that we implement management tools, procedures, to boost soil quality, to have better watershed management, the nature thrives and our business thrives. Because we have been able, through science, measurements, and monitoring processes, see that whenever we have a healthier nature, more biodiversity that we also monitor in our areas, our business is better, our productivity is better. We need less land to produce the same amount of goods. And we also have a very good database on that. I love science as well. And that we see that our growth, and we grow on degraded land, We put restoration process in place, like right now we are restoring 40,000 hectares here in Brazil, in Cerrado, Amazon, and on the Atlantic forest. And the more we improve our nature indicators, being both on fauna and flora and microorganisms, the business thrives, because there is more growth, more productivity, as long as we do this in good. So overall, we have this currently 1.1 million hectares, like 7 times the city of Rio de Janeiro, of nature conservations in the main biomas in Brazil. And we have no doubt that this is crucial for the success of our business. Being in Brazil and in the global south, we cannot let the social part aside. Because in Brazil, the environment dilemma cannot be treated separately from the social. We operate in a lot of areas with vulnerable communities, vulnerable society. If we don't bring them into the solutions, participating on restoration, fostering extractivism process, fostering recyclability on all this concept of the circularity, it won't work long term. And we just became a 100-year company this year, and we are planning the next year. And for us, including improving and making the communities that our enables strive will be crucial for us to keep nature, and fostering nature is what is going to take us to have the same success in the next 100 years.
Fantastic, fantastic. So it's really moving towards a nature positive kind of business model. And for many years, well, when we talk about bioeconomy, we think about biodiversity and the sustainable use of biodiversity. And for Latin America and the Caribbean, especially, this means a lot because we are a very biodiversity-rich region. The amount of organisms that we don't know and that we are yet to discover is enormous. And that is a kind of frontier that we continue to explore and to link on the ways we can use and benefit from that. And this year there will be a big discussion, one of the conferences of the parties on the Biodiversity Convention in this region, in Cali, Colombia. And one of the key topics that will be discussed there is about benefit sharing from the perspective of digital sequencing and all other aspects that in the end will relate to the use of biodiversity for promoting bioeconomy. So in all that context, also for many years, Natura has been one of the best examples of how to use biodiversity from that perspective, how to explore, how to connect to cosmetics and to other industries. And this is what we present in many regions. We ourselves, when we talk about bioeconomy, we use Natura as an example. So that is really inspiring. But from that perspective, what are your views in terms of how bioeconomy could benefit, could promote benefit sharing to local communities, to indigenous peoples, and help creating these value chains that will link to new ways of using our biological richness? So for that, Fernanda, I give you this question.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, to hear the women, the incredible women that talked before us. And as Marina said, for us it's very important because we need to connect this situation related in talking about people, the people that are living in the forest and need the forest to survive. So for us, for the ones who doesn't know, Natura is a Brazilian cosmetic company. We are working at the Amazon region with research of bioeconomy for a long time, more than 20 years. And we are working with a kind of open innovation model with universities here in Brazil, in Latin America, to incentivize the development at the region. So the benefit sharing for us is a kind of model to generate prosperity and revenue for the families that are living in that region. We have researched more than 55 ingredients from the biodiversity, and with these more than 10,000 families, we are paying for benefit sharing related to the nuts and seeds and oils that they are selling for us, because we are using their traditional knowledge. For example, we are using castanha, it's a Brazilian nut, and we are putting this oil in our hand creams because we understand, talking with the communities, the traditional communities, that this oil is good for their skin. Sorry, and we suffered a little bit. There is a lot of challenge related to that, but we think that it's a nice opportunity for us to generate benefits for the families and to help them to preserve it, because it's a kind of, when we are buying these ingredients, we are helping the families to survive, so they are standing the forest and they are finding another way to live. So in this process, we learned a lot with the people that are living at the area, because they are the traditional knowledge to preserve the water, the trees and everything. But sometimes it's not possible for them to stand in the forest. So at Natura, we think that if we could be buyers from these seeds and oils or generate value for these people, it could be helpful for the world.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Fernanda. And this is the kind of value chains that we will need to stop deforestation, to create new conditions in those areas on which the whole planet depends. So it is very critical to ensure that those livelihoods are enabled. And bioeconomy plays a role in that. So now let me turn to Dr. Veronica Tomei. Veronica, you work for the German Federal Ministry for the Environment. I'm not going to tell the whole name of the ministry. Yes, but you've been also, and today we were presented with the principles on bioeconomy that were produced as part of the G20 initiative on bioeconomy. And I would like to ask you, from the perspective of a government as yours, and also for you as commissioner for the 2030 agenda, what is your perspective on these principles? How you think these principles will help to move this agenda forward?
Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you very much. I feel extremely honored to be part of this panel after these incredible inputs that we heard, and also realizing that I might be the only European here on the panel. Well, I come from Europe, but I have a Latin American angle as well, so I feel very well here. And to your question, I cannot answer it before starting as well with a story, not as emotional and personal as Vicenti's at the beginning. But nevertheless, I was hearing all these presentations and these reflections on bioeconomy, and many thanks to Brazil for leading this discussion. And I was remembered of a bit more than, no, almost exactly 1 year ago, I was attending the action days that preceded the last year's SDG summit. And then there was Marina Silva having a long discourse about bioeconomy. And the most important part of this discourse was she was issuing an invitation for a global debate on bioeconomy. And I think that's exactly what you did. So you took it up, you took profit of the G20 presidency, and you kind of forced us all to discuss this. And I think, well, I'm a political scientist, and I think one of the most important things that you have to do when you want to come to common results at the international level, and also to this policy coherence that was so much requested here also among different stakeholders, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to understand the others and the others' perspectives, and you have to come to a common understanding of a certain term. So I can say that in the G20 world, we have certainly very diverse experiences and national circumstances, and maybe also beliefs that guide our different concepts of bioeconomy. But really the big service that Brazilian presidency has done to us all, I think, is to really say, okay, first of all, we have a series of discussions so that everybody shares his experiences, shares his knowledge, her knowledge, and input and intake on the topic, and the important things about it. So distilling really what is really important about what we are discussing, and what are those elements in the variety of stories that we tell each other, what are the recurrent red lines that we need to agree upon if we want to continue cooperating together on the same path, because I think this is just the beginning. You spoke about bioeconomy is still in the niche phase. Well, to scale it up, we need international cooperation on the topic and on the way that we want to go. So what Brazilian presidency did was, first of all, bringing us all together to this conversation, forcing us to share our experiences, very diverse experiences, and then making us, or helping us, to agree on a common set of principles where this is the minimum that we understand, that we all agree upon. And I think there is an incredible merit to that, because this gives us then the entry point to go further. So that's my main intake of that. So if you ask me what is my view on that and how do I value this, well, this is the incredible value. And I'm very hopeful because bioeconomy is very dear to all three Rio conventions that are, by coincidence, having their conference of the parties this year. So from now on to the end of the year. So, and it seems like natural that we would then continue this debate in those larger forums. We also have a group of not so unimportant countries that have agreed on common principles, and we can then enlarge this debate. And coming back to Luisa's point on the important aspect of emissions produced by the way that we consume and produce, and their impact on climate change, I think it is kind of obvious that we have to introduce, or that we have to strengthen, the bioeconomy aspect and the circular economy aspect in our climate change negotiations. And I'm turning again to Brazil. Just so for us, coming from the ministry that I come from, of course, what has been mentioned quite often so far, the issues of biodiversity protection, sustainable use of biodiversity, restoration and protection of our ecosystems is extremely important, and that's why we also stressed so much the circular economy aspect. So it's not only on the technical side, as Luisa said, but also in the bio side that we have to stress and focus on the circularity aspects of bioeconomy. Yeah, I think I haven't looked at your watch, but I
No,
leave it by
thank
here.
you.
But really, it's the start of a further conversation.
Yes.
And
yes.
there's a lot to come on, to continue. And I think the beauty of this conversation that is led by politicians is that it is including stakeholders, it is including the different conventions, it is including the business sector, the civil society perspectives and experiences of it, and that we can do further all together. So it's an enlarged global conversation that will hopefully lead to the point where it is not a niche anymore, but really upscaled and producing the results that you have shown us that are possible. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Veronica. And these are very important perspectives, and also in terms of what is the framework for this discussion and what is the way forward. There are so many questions that I would like to ask you all now, and I guess that the audience here would like also to hear more, but time flies and we are behind the schedule. So I'm very afraid that we will need to start moving towards the closing. We just had 30 minutes for this super rich conversation, which indeed is a challenge in itself. But before closing, I would like to ask each of you just to give us one key message or one key action that you would like to see to position bioeconomy in the global agenda, to move this, to put bioeconomy at the center of the transformations that we need to live within planetary boundaries, to live sustainably and in harmony with nature. So let me start in this order. So Veronica, please.
I think I already answered your question.
What is one key message? And
I think one key message that I got from almost all interventions is the notion of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So we are all responsible for making this change happen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Fernanda.
Yes, well, I was thinking about scale, because we are working for 20 years at the area and it's not enough. So my one word for me is scale up the bioeconomy here at the region.
My call would be to ask your support on creating market mechanisms to make the bioeconomy to thrive. Because if it doesn't make sense economically, we are never going to reach scale.
From my side, it's about bringing this coherence to the policy frameworks, bringing this coherence to the legal frameworks, and land, it's a very nice way to have this comprehensive approach. You can really have this system view, so it's really can be a catalyzer when you think about the landscapes, when you think about in this integral way, you can give policy coherence once you give this territorial view. So it's also an invitation to come to Riyadh in December. It will be a great moment, the moonshoot moment for this agenda.
Yeah, from my part, I think when we participate in these global events, we sign up for commitments, agreements, but you know, I think that they are not followed up with real action. We need to create incentives for real action on the ground, in the water, for climate, biodiversity, and people, because these three are essential for life on Earth, including ours. So let's connect the three agendas and use bioeconomic models to really shift the trend of transgression on the planetary boundaries. They are all overstepped. And there is no future for the planet if we don't bring, from where I'm sitting, food systems to operate within planetary boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let me add to this one This is a message for all of us, and it's more than a message, it's an invitation, because we are in the context of sustainable production and consumption, so we all are consumers. So how can we, in our everyday lives, look at whatever we consume from the perspective of bioeconomy? How could we see certain products to move towards more bioeconomy-friendly products? How can we help to this transformation? So it is something that we all can be part of and be involved and be supportive of this transformation. So please join me in thanking our fantastic panelists that we have today. Thank you so much. And I really hope that this was very inspiring as it was for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We're not yet done with this session. I know we have, please, if I can invite our wonderful panelists to take a picture to remember this great moment while I'll wrap us to the closing of this important session. And we've decided to extend it a little more. Why? Because you have seen the amount of political, business, academia, scientific support for the implementation of the G20 principles on bioeconomy. And I want to recognize particularly two important persons that are here with us today and have not taken the floor, as a matter of fact, but we are extremely honored to recognize and acknowledge the presence of Justice and Honorable Herman Benjamin, who is the President of the Superior Tribunal of Justice of Brazil. Let's give him a round of applause to just... He has been a tremendous champion of not only, we spoke about science, we spoke about policy, we spoke about business commitment, but when everything else fails, we have the law. And he has been a tremendous champion of environmental law. The second person that I want to recognize and invite soon to the podium, just to say a few remarks, is Ms. Astrid Schumacher, who, as you may know, all of you, has been recently taken the functions, important responsibilities as Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. All these discussions that we have had today are how do we put in practice the three principles of the convention. So Astrid, welcome to this to the room. Thank you for being a part of this session. And I will now invite first Mr. Liu Ning, Director General, Department of Nature and Ecology Conservation, Ministry of Ecology of Environment of China, who has a very important message on behalf of the current President of the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Minister of Environment of China. Mr. Liu Ning, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jorge. Dear Mr. Vincent Araujo, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all the speakers, as you said, it's very inspiring a moment, even for me, fly 30 hours on the invitation of UNEP to come here to learn so much thing from China. So as we learn, the biodiversity has extremely high economic value, manifested in direct value, indirect value, and potential value in this time of challenge and opportunities. Bioeconomy has been widely accepted by different countries and regions as a critical strategy for coping with fossil fuel shortage, biodiversity loss, and climate change, among other environmental problems. All the distinguished guests and representatives here from different countries, especially Brazil and other countries, have just made wonderful and insightful speeches and shared their successful experience and innovative practice in advancing bioeconomic as an enabling for sustainable consumption and production.
This valuable exchange and cooperation had not only deepened our understanding of the importance of the bioeconomy, but also provided new ideas and methods for our future work. As we approach the successful conclusion of this forum, on behalf of the Chinese government, I extend my heartfelt congratulations on the successful organization of this event and express my sincere gratitude to all the representatives and the guests here. Bioeconomic is a solution that can drive equitable economic growth while at the same time managing resources sustainability and reducing negative impact on land use and biodiversity. The demand for bio-based products and biofuels is changing land use practice and agriculture as they can compete with food production and affect the nature ecosystem. Comprehensive measures must be undertaken at both policy and practical level to ensure the continuous extent of biodiversity and its contribution to economic growth in the bio-based economy, striking balance between the demand for bio-based products and biodiversity conservation is indispensable for sustainable development, fostering a win-win situation that promotes economic growth while preserving our nature heritage. China is a large agriculture country rich in biomass resources. The Chinese government indeed placed a high emphasis on the bioeconomic and had incorporated the development of the bioeconomic into the outline of the National Economic and Social Development Plan, formulated and implemented the fourth five-year plan for the bioeconomic development. The fourth five-year plan for renewable energy development issued in 2022, and the three-year action plan to accelerate the innovative development of non-food bio-based materials issued in 2023. All of this aimed to promote bioenergy use and biomass product development. In the field of scientific research and international cooperation, the Chinese government and the Brazil government jointly signed the MOU and of understanding on bioeconomic development in 2023 to promote cooperation in the field of medicine and health, bioagriculture, bioenergy, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable development. As early as 2021, the National Nature Science Foundation of China and the United Nations Environmental Program jointly launched the Global Biomass Resource Sustainability and Climate Change Adaptation Management five-year project. It is a cross-regional cooperation study led by the Department of Environmental Science and Engineering of Fudan University and the UNEP-IEMP, and jointly implemented with the Institute of Geographic Science and Resources of the Chinese Academy of Science, De La Salle University in the Philippines, Groningen University in the Netherlands, Paulista University in Brazil, the University of Maryland in the United States, University College London in the United Kingdom, and other relevant scholars. The bioeconomic, a new economic paradigm, spans agriculture, food, health, energy, and industrial sectors. National bioeconomic policies can significantly impact human livelihood and transform lifestyles. In most of cases, biotechnology and bioindustry development foster economic growth, employment, and poverty reduction. Some bio-based projects support the biodiversity conservation, promote rural development, and help to maintain food and energy security. The bioeconomic vision not only impact technology and productivity, but also fosters social change and reduce economic disparities. It significantly enhanced gender equality by providing opportunities for underrepresented groups, including women and minorities in STEM field, also IPLCs, as well as challenging stereotypes and career barriers. As the largest developing country in the world, China is well aware of its responsibility to develop the bioeconomic and promote sustainable production and consumption. We will continue to adhere to the concept of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development, strengthen the production and rational use of the biological resources, and promote the green, circular, and low-carbon development of the biological industry. Under the impetus of the G20 bioeconomic initiative, we firmly believe that we can greatly promote the health development of the global economy and achieve a win-win for economic growth and ecological and environmental protection through technological innovation and international cooperation. At the same time, we will also actively participate in global biodiversity conservation and climate change governance, and together with the international community, jointly address global challenges. Finally, I would like to thank the organizer UNEP and all the staff for your hard work, also the Brazilian government and the city of Rio, and thank the representative speakers for your very active contribution. Let us join hands to jointly create a new chapter in the development of the bioeconomy and make new and greater contribution to the achievement of global sustainable development. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Liu Ning. And I would like to now invite to the podium Ms. Astrid Schumacher, who's the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Astrid.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. It's a bit of a surprise to me to find myself here, but I was very, very privileged to be able to attend this session with these super, super interesting presentations. Of course, I stand here now representing the Convention on Biological Diversity. As Andrea has also mentioned, we have the 3 Rio conventions come in rapid succession with their COPs this year. And sometimes, life just works out well. So to have these bioeconomy principles adopted now, and then have these 3 conventions that offer us the discussion space to see how can we move from principles to practice, and also to making these principles enshrined in policy models, regulation, or whatever works in individual parts of the world is just really important. And of course, all our conventions, we have our work programs, it's going to keep us very busy. But thanks to the Colombian presidency in Cali, we have a huge green zone, we have huge space for discussions that bring all stakeholders together. And there are all these many ideas that are not yet part of the work programs but need discussion, like the Codex Planetarius that we heard about. I mean, that is a very, very interesting idea. The bioeconomy principles. They are principles. Excellent. They mention biodiversity. They mention circularity. What does that mean in practice? How will it work? For what sectors does it work? For what sectors does it not work? So there's a lot of things we still need to discuss, and wonderful to have this moment. And maybe one last point, and also again coming back to the introductory comments from WWF. the issue of harmful subsidies remains a major concern. We're all very, very much concerned about financial frameworks and lack of financial support for our agendas, but we're still in a situation where the harmful spending vastly, but vastly outstrips the positive biodiversity positive spending. And unless we address this issue, we're not going to get very far. Luckily, we have a target in the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework, which is target 18. The parties to our convention have been asked to put forward national targets and national implementation plans by the time of our COP. Obviously, not all will manage, but already more than 60 have put forward their target, more than 1,750 targets. The majority of countries having put forward targets have put forward targets that mirror every single target of our framework. So we are now in a position to start looking at how countries want to address their commitments, and that will be very, very important. So I echo what Andreas said, come to Riyadh, of course, but before you go to Riyadh, please come to Cali, and let's start the conversation there. Thank you so much.
And to close, I would like to invite Ms. Lydia Vaz, who is Sustainability Analyst at the Federation Industry of Rio de Janeiro, and why this presentation matters, because it shows us what we would like to do as One Planet Network. Lydia will explain to us a recently launched initiative entitled Bioeconomy, Nature and Business, which is a collection of case studies. So why don't you tell us about it to inspire us and start reflecting how can the One Planet Network advance the implementation of the high-level principles of the G20 on sustainable bioeconomy. Over you.
Good morning, I'm Lydia. Today I'm here representing Federation of Industries of the State of Rio de Janeiro. I would like to thank United Nations for this honored invitation. It's really an extraordinary opportunity to present our handbook, Bioeconomy, Nature and Business. So as we have lots of colleagues, Brazilian colleagues here, and because I love my language, of course, I would like to make this presentation in Portuguese, but please feel comfortable and free to talk to me in English after this presentation. It will be a pleasure, okay? So let's go in Portuguese. Bom, nós, quando iniciamos o nosso trabalho em bioeconomia, natureza e negócios, nós percebemos que tínhamos um grande desafio de falar sobre essa conexão entre biodiversidade e indústria e natureza e negócios. Portanto, essa conexão, esse link, a gente precisava falar sobre isso, explicar do que se tratava essa conexão. E também tivemos o grande desafio de falar sobre bioeconomia, que é um tema que, como sabemos, tem uma série de conceitos entre os países, entre as instituições. Então, nós, enquanto Federação de Indústrias, para levar esse conhecimento às nossas empresas associadas, sentimos a necessidade de criar o nosso próprio posicionamento, levar o nosso entendimento do que se trata a bioeconomia e temos uma abordagem bastante ampla que abrange tanto biotecnologia, a bioeconomia de biorrecursos e bioeconomia bioecológica. Bom, e nós levamos esse nosso posicionamento, esse nosso entendimento para a COP Clima em Dubai, no ano passado, em 2023. E, através dessa nossa publicação, nós levamos também alguns cases de sucesso que mostram o que as empresas do Estado do Rio já fazem em prol da biodiversidade, da bioeconomia. Nós levamos 15 cases de sucesso e, ao final, eu vou mostrar aqui para vocês alguns desses 3 cases. Bom, então nós levamos essa nossa abordagem econômica da biodiversidade, mostrando a conexão com o setor produtivo. Por vezes nós vemos muita energia empregada nesse sentido para falar dos possíveis impactos negativos que o setor produtivo pode causar na natureza, porém a gente não pode se limitar a isso. A gente precisa pensar também nos impactos positivos que as empresas podem causar no ambiente natural e também falar das dependências e oportunidades. Nós somos, Brasil, nós somos o país mais biodiverso entre todos, do mundo, e nós precisamos transformar essas nossas vantagens comparativas em vantagens competitivas. E, nesse sentido, a gente entende a bioeconomia como um agente transformador que revela essa nossa vocação para a bioindústria, que é essencial para endereçamento de diversos desafios do nosso tempo, as mudanças climáticas, a insegurança alimentar. E nós entendemos, então, a biodiversidade como motor da bioeconomia e como solução. E nós temos uma série de abordagens nessa nossa publicação. Nós falamos também de soluções baseadas na natureza, nós falamos de infraestrutura natural para segurança hídrica, resiliência climática, adaptação baseada em ecossistemas, pagamento por serviços ambientais, economia circular, equidade de gênero, relação com públicos de interesse, responsabilidade social. E essa, inclusive, é bem perceptível uma marca aqui dessas discussões, tanto de ontem quanto de hoje, que é a integração das temáticas, né? O quanto é importante haver a integração dessas temáticas. Bom, e como falado anteriormente, nós lançamos essa nossa publicação na COP Clima do ano passado, em Dubai, pelo nosso presidente Eduardo Eugênio. E eu vou trazer aqui para vocês, como prometido, alguns cases de sucesso, 3 importantes cases de sucesso que constam na nossa publicação e que, inclusive, foram vencedores do Prêmio Firjan de Sustentabilidade em diversas edições. O primeiro deles que eu trago é o Parque Orla Piratininga, que é um projeto, um trabalho de soluções baseadas na natureza na cidade de Niterói, no estado do Rio, que apresenta uma série de soluções baseadas na natureza para tratamento de 3 rios que antes desaguavam, suas águas desaguavam poluídas na Lagoa de Piratininga, levando material poluente, material orgânico para a lagoa e causando a sua degradação. Então, antes dessas águas chegarem à lagoa, elas são interceptadas por jardins filtrantes. Essa estrutura contém também biovaletas, jardins de chuva, uma série de tecnologias baseadas na natureza para cidades que acabam por levar essa recuperação do ambiente natural para esse local. Esse é um case de sucesso que, inclusive, é tido como o maior investimento da América Latina em soluções baseadas na natureza. E é bastante interessante a gente observar que são soluções baseadas na natureza aplicadas em cidades. Porque, por vezes, quando a gente fala nas SBNs, nós acabamos por entender reflorestamento, captura de CO2 da atmosfera, recuperação de matas ciliares, porém, a gente tem também essa oportunidade de aplicação de soluções baseadas na natureza em cidades. O segundo case é da L'Oréal, que trata seus efluentes sanitários e industriais através de jardins filtrantes, quase que 100% dos seus efluentes do Centro de Pesquisa, Tecnologia e Inovação, que fica na Ilha do Fundão, também aqui no município do Rio, no estado do Rio. E através dessa tecnologia de jardins filtrantes, nessa estação de efluentes nada convencional, esses poluentes eles são degradados por essas espécies de plantas que possuem nas suas raízes micro-organismos e que incorporam esses elementos na própria planta sem contaminá-las. Basicamente, a manutenção dessa ETE nada convencional é a poda, e essa é interessante, é uma SBN aplicada a uma indústria, né, que pode ser replicada a tantas outras indústrias, a tantas outras empresas, empreendimentos, que tem a questão da circularidade muito, muito forte. Toda essa água ela é recirculada nesse prédio, é reutilizada em sanitários, em outras áreas desse prédio, todo esse centro de pesquisa e tecnologia é contemplado por essa maneira de se tratar, uma maneira inovadora de se tratar os efluentes. Bom, por fim, Madre Frutos, que é um exemplo de uma pequena empresa que realiza o manejo da jaca, que é uma fruta exótica no bioma Mata Atlântica, no estado do Rio. Essa é uma fruta que, quando cai, ela dispersa diversas sementes, então ela é um grave problema aqui no nosso bioma Mata Atlântica. E a Madre Frutos, ela tem contratação de mulheres, mães de família, chefes de família, que são as pessoas foco, o público-alvo dessa empresa social, que é financiada pelo Instituto Sinal do Vale, e esse produto é utilizado em substituição a produtos de origem animal, então é uma grande alternativa para a indústria alimentícia. Bom, O tempo é um pouco curto, por fim, eu quero apenas pedir licença aqui para destacar alguns pontos que nós tivemos anteriormente, e que não só hoje, mas também no dia de ontem, que os nossos palestrantes e líderes puderam nos trazer, da importância em relação à conexão entre pessoas, a conexão entre as temáticas e, principalmente, a essa convocação do setor privado a fazer parte da solução entre tantas questões urgentes do nosso tema que nós temos. E eu espero que, através do nosso trabalho, através da nossa publicação, a gente esteja mostrando o que o setor privado, como o setor privado ele pode estar contribuindo nesse contexto. Obrigada.
Thank you, Brigado. Thank you, Lydia. And thank you to Firjan. I have to say that you have been wonderful partners in helping us connect the work that we are doing at the global level, not only in the space of bioeconomy, but consumer information. And now that we're going to start discussing about sustainable tourism with the industry and how to improve and increase the sustainability of businesses practices, which is, I believe, one of the core missions of the One Planet Network. Thank you, all of you, for this very important discussion. I think I was the worst moderator in all the sessions of the One Planet Network because of the time that we spent, but I hope you found it rich, interesting, and also insightful. We will now close this plenary, and we will invite, after a short adjustment of time, so please come back. We're going to have an exciting discussion in this room about tourism. Our session, supported by the Sustainable Tourism Program, entitled Tourism Reimagined Towards Sustainable, Low-Carbon, Regenerative and Inclusive Operations. And I want to thank all the partners that have been part in preparing that session, and also appreciate their patience as well. Thank you.